Hi, I'm Larissa with Beekeeping Made Simple. I'm a beekeeper of 10 years. I first kept bees in Pennsylvania and then moved to the Big Island of Hawaii, where I worked for commercial apiaries before starting my own. And this episode video is about beekeeping in the summer heat. Now I have another video about what bees do in the summer and how you can help them with the bearding and what they do with the heat and hurricanes and things of that sort. But this is what the beekeeper does. Right now I am almost 6 months pregnant, and so the heat is hitting me really hard right now, more so than normal. We're here on the Big Island of Hawaii, where there are 10 of the world's 13 climate zones. So some of my hives are way up in elevation where it's, you know, a cool 60-70 degrees in the daytime and not so bad, very rainy. But we also have hives down low, which are in areas that are labeled as semi-arid desert, waterfront properties. And it gets hot. Literally, sweat just drips off of me onto the bees. And so, not only for you as the beekeeper do you want to stay cool, it helps you think better, it allows you to take your time with the bees, but also when I was pregnant the last time, I noticed that I got stung a lot. And I think that is because the more you sweat and the more uncomfortable you are, the more likely you are to get stung. The more you can aggravate the bees, the more unhappy everybody is, to be honest. So here are the things that I figured out over the years and that other more experienced beekeepers that I worked with have told me about. I'm also going to make another video that is about dealing with lifting heavy things and how you can make beekeeping lighter through equipment and also other tricks in case you already have this equipment and now you are having trouble lifting heavy things. So first of all, when dealing with these hot summer days, you gotta get rid of the protective gear. That's gonna help you the most. My God, when you take off these leather gloves, you usually notice just like you feel so much cooler just when you take off your gloves. I had read a study where they worked with, I believe, Marines, but I'm not sure, and they just put this item on their hands and feet, and their heart rate went down and their body stopped overheating like immediately. So your hands and your feet and your head are ways that you can cool down, and then also in ways that you can overheat. So what I did was I got rid of the gloves. And for some of you that might be a scary thing. And you know, the ventilated gloves help a little bit, but not really, come on. Like, as the ventilation's not doing much, you still have leather gloves plus a glove up to your elbow. So get rid of the gloves. To help you get used to this, you know, open up the hive with gloves on. Get a feel for how the bees are doing. Have your smoker ready. If bees aren't bothering you, if they're not flying up at you, they're busy doing their thing, take the gloves off. See how it goes. It's really important to not be scared to get stung. My first couple of years, I was, you know, just a hobby beekeeper, and I very rarely got stung. When I worked for a commercial apiary, I took off my gloves, and for one, you work faster, you harm the bees less because you can really feel what you're doing. You're more aware of what you're doing. You're aware if you're about to squish a bee, where not so much with the gloves. So overall, I think beekeeping is way better without these leather gloves. And of course, have them around if you need to. There are times when they're going to be cranky, like when there's no more flowers blooming, or when you're harvesting honey. Or wear the gloves when you're treating for mites. But in general, when you're just doing a regular inspection, I would take the gloves off. And then from there, get more comfortable with them and take off this suit. They do make lighter suits that are more breathable, but I got used to wearing shorts, a t-shirt. I would have just a veil. I always still wore a veil. I worked with a guy that got stung on the eyeball, not even just the eyelid, but the eyeball. And I've had a bee fly up my nose twice. Once she stung me up the nose, once I somehow pulled her out before she stung me. So I wear a veil, but They do make veils with the vents, the hat that has the vents, and you can't just have a veil. I've worn tank tops and shorts and flip-flops. I would recommend wearing shoes, and I recommend wearing baggy, lightweight pants. Not sweatpants, not dark colored pants, but they don't have to be heavy jeans. They just have to be baggy, because if they're baggy, then they're not close against your skin, and even if the bee stings it, it's not going through the material to your skin. It doesn't have to be heavyweight. That being said, I've had a lot of people come to my beekeeping class wearing yoga pants or like stretchy pants. Just don't do that. So I don't recommend the shorts, because I used to get bees climbing up my shorts all the time when I wore shorts. And then if you occasionally drop a frame, or if you have to shake a frame of bees into your hive, wearing flip-flops, we call them slippers here in Hawaii, isn't ideal. But a short sleeve shirt and just a veil over your head, no gloves, I highly recommend it. Next, put in ice pack. You can get lots of different kinds of ice packs, you know, the plastic ones, the cloth ones. Put that in your lower back. You know, you can tuck it into the waistband of your pants. That will help cool you down a lot. Pop-up tents. I put up a pop-up tent over some beehives for a class I was giving, and then I just kept it up because it was kind of nice. And you know, I think the pop-up tent lasted maybe 4 or 5 months without taking it down at any point in the Hawaii sun. And so it is like maybe an investment you would have to make every year if you're not going to take it down frequently, but can really help. The time of day helps, but just be a little bit careful with this. If you're going to open up your beehive, you know, you don't want to open it up when it's dark out. I wouldn't open it up when it's raining out or going to rain, because the bees can be kind of cranky at that time. But you can open it up early in the morning. I wouldn't open it up when they're all coming back to the hive, because they can be a little not as happy and the hive is full. But if you open it up in the morning, I had a beehive outside my house once. I don't know why, but it was like right outside our bedroom window. And there were mornings that I woke up at 5 a.m. thanks to a super annoying rooster next door. And I would hear them buzzing already. And I went outside the one time and I was amazed at how active the entrance was. 5 a.m. the sun wasn't completely up. It wasn't totally dark, but it was early in the morning and the bees were busy. So they usually say, to prevent getting stung, to make beekeeping easier, open up your hive between 10 a.m. and like 3 p.m. and that way the majority of the foraging bees are out. And that is true, but that is also the hottest time of the day. So if you open up your hive, say 7, 8, 9 a.m., especially in the middle of the summer when the sun's already been up and the bees are probably already out and about, you still stand a good chance of not annoying the bees too much. A decent amount of the foragers have already left, and the sun isn't beating on you the way it will be at 1 p.m. Let me see, what else do I have here? If you don't want to put up a pop-up tent, you can put your bees just in a shady spot like under a tree. Now when it comes to winter time and it's cold out, you're going to want to put your bees in somewhere sunny, but you can move the hive once you've prepared it for winter, and you're closing it up, then you can move the hive out to a sunny spot. But over the summertime when it's really hot, you can put it into a shady spot if you have one, and avoid having to do the whole pop-up tent thing. And so the other thing is just don't be out there so much. This was something that took me a really long time to figure out, and I really didn't completely until I was pregnant. And I was managing over 20 hives all by myself. They were at a few different locations. I was managing hives for a hotel by myself, and it was hot, it was summertime, and it was just brutal. And then I thought about the commercial apiary I worked for and how they had 4,000 hives and they had 7 beekeepers running these 4,000 hives. And I thought about like what they did when they opened a hive. And yeah, they had a deal with the queen breeder. A queen breeder gave them unlimited queen bees, and they gave them bulk bees for their queen breeding operation. So they didn't have to prevent swarming. They didn't, I wouldn't say they didn't have to prevent swarming. They didn't prevent swarming. It wasn't something that they spent the time on or cared about. Their bees were out away from residential areas. So they didn't have to worry about like annoying property owners. And if a hive swarmed and they noticed it, they just popped in another queen. They had a box of queens every single time they went out to the bee yard. So things like that they didn't pay attention to, but I recommend hobby beekeepers paying attention to. But when it comes to other things, you do not have to pull every single frame out of the beehive. You should not be disturbing the brood section especially that much. When you take the lid off, you're going to hear a buzzing sound. That buzzing sound is going to tell you overall how they're doing. You can look at their entrance without even having to open the hive, and you'll see the activity that's going on. You'll see if pollen's coming in, which tells you if there's a queen that's laying that they need to bring in food for. You'll see if there's a lot of activity, which means that there's food that they're bringing in. You'll hear, you know, if they're happy, if they're content, or if it's really quiet, or they kind of seem bored or depressed, which can mean that they don't have a queen, or that they have viruses. There's a lot of things you can tell without having to pull a frame out. And then when you're looking in the honey super, I mean, you can really just look down into the super and usually tell what's going on in that honey super without having to pull a single frame out. It does help when you don't use foundation. You can see even more, but even with foundation, you can. And then when you pick up the box, without having to pull a frame out, you can gauge the weight. Is this getting heavy? Is this really light? Does it feel like there's only 1 or 2 frames of honey, or does this feel like it's full? And then when you're in the brood section, all you really have to do is pull out a few frames. You want to see that there's eggs, larvae, and capped brood. You want to see that there's a good population. You don't want to see a whole lot of brood where you're seeing the face of a bee without a capping on it, which is often a sign of a virus and a varroa mite infestation. You're not looking for varroa mites on the backs of bees because once the bees are at that point, often the varroa mite infestation is too far gone and you should have been testing for mites a while ago. You're not looking for the queen bee because it doesn't really matter if you see the queen bee. If you don't see any eggs, then you have either no queen or a queen that's not doing her job. Either way, you have a problem. So you're really just looking for signs of a healthy hive, and you're looking for signs that they have food, and you want to make sure that they have room. And I have a link in the show notes to the video about beekeeping through the seasons, which has a link to a seasonal chart so that you know what you're supposed to be looking for depending on the time of year. If it's springtime, you want to make sure they have enough room. Summertime, make sure they have enough room. Fall, don't give them too much room. When you should be treating for mites, when you should be looking for that varroa mite infestation levels, and all that fun stuff. So keep that in mind. And I know when you're first getting started, you want to see everything in the hive and you want to spend hours out with the bees, but it's not really great for you to be out in the sun like that, or for the bees to have their hive open so much. So try to keep it short and sweet. You know, if you need to prevent swarming, do a little bit extra. Take out a minimum 4 to 6 frames out of those brood boxes to give them ample space, and make splits so that you don't have to go and worry about seeing if they're going to swarm come a week or 2 later. You know that you're good for a few weeks. And there are other ways that you can see how your hive is doing and get to know them and just gauge the health of the hive without opening it. And so therefore you can do that early in the morning or in the evening when it's cooled down a lot. I used to come home from work and I would bring out a lawn chair, and I had just bought an ukulele, and I would sit there and play the ukulele and watch the bees coming and going from the hive, mostly coming back from their trip. And it was a really nice evening thing to do. And doing it day to day to day, week to week, also gave me a great look at what was going on in the hive and how it was changing month to month. So I hope this helps you. If you have any other tips for people, please leave them in the comments below. And don't forget to check out the video about what to do for bees in the summer heat and the problems that can arise. And don't forget, if you want to learn how to become a beekeeper, or maybe you already have your bees and are realizing that you need more help, check out our website, beekeepingmadesimple.com. We have 2 different classes, a full 7-hour class that goes through everything you need to know to keep bees, harvesting honey, preparing your hive for winter, installing the nucleus, checking on your bees, and we have an intro class that is for people that are thinking about keeping bees but aren't sure if it's right for them.